A single mother asks a wheelchair-bound millionaire for a job, but his wife gets jealous. When she meets a wheelchair-bound millionaire, he offers her food that tastes real. If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching us from. We'll keep you posted. The sun beat down mercilessly on the streets of the city center that December afternoon. Helena Salin adjusted the strap of the cooler bag on her shoulder, feeling the weight of the unsold lunchboxes. At 32 years old, her face already bore the deep marks of a difficult life, but her brown eyes still maintained a glow of determination that not even hunger could erase. She observed her distorted reflection in the mirrored facade of the imposing building in front of her, the headquarters of the Mueller Group, one of the largest business conglomerates in the country. Sweat dripped down his forehead as he gazed up at the 40-story building that rose like a monument to economic power. At home, his 8-year-old son, Miguel, waited with the refrigerator nearly empty. The last few weeks had been especially difficult since he lost his job at the restaurant, where he worked as a kitchen assistant. The establishment had closed without warning, leaving dozens of employees destitute. Helena took a deep breath, fixed her black hair in an improvised bun, and made a decision that would change her life forever. With determined steps, she walked through the building's revolving doors, immediately being enveloped by the air conditioning that contrasted brutally with the suffocating heat of the street. The security guard watched her suspiciously, but she maintained her posture upright as if she belonged there. "Good afternoon, I would like to speak to someone from Human Resources," she said, her voice firmer than her racing heart suggested. "Do you have an appointment?" the security guard asked, his gaze taking in Helena's simple clothes. "No, but it's important. Please." At that moment, the doors of the main elevator opened, and a group of executives emerged in the midst of a heated discussion. At their center was Gail Mueller, the group's CEO and a well-known figure in business magazines. He was tall, in his 50s, with meticulously trimmed gray hair and an Italian suit that cost more than Helena's year's rent. That's when it happened. One of the executives bumped into Helena, causing her cooler bag to open and some lunch, boxes to fall onto the marble floor. Silence was instantaneous. All eyes turned to her, and she quickly bent down to gather her belongings. "I'm sorry, What's the problem here?" Gail Muller's deep voice cut through the air. Helena looked up and met the businessman's piercing gaze. It was a moment of courage born of desperation. "Mr. Mueller, give me 5 minutes, just 5 minutes of your time." The executives exchanged surprised glances at the boldness of that simple woman. Gail, however, remained silent, studying her curiously. There was something different about her, a dignity that refused to bow even in the face of adversity. "And why should I?" he asked, more intrigued than annoyed. "Because I have a proposal that can benefit your company and your employees. I'm not asking for charity, I'm offering a service." Helena was surprised by her own audacity. Gail glanced at his watch, a gesture that made Helena hold her breath. 5 minutes. In my office. Now." The executives looked shocked, but no one dared question her. Helena was led into the executive elevator, her heart pounding so hard she feared everyone could hear it. On the 40th floor, the doors opened onto a space that seemed to have come from another world, all shades of grey and black, with contemporary art on the walls and a panoramic view of São Paulo that made the city seem unreal. Gail's secretary, an elegant woman in her 40s, gave Helena an icy glare before opening the doors to the main office. The space was even more impressive, with a solid wooden desk and floor-to-ceiling windows. "Your 5 minutes start now," Gail said, sitting down in his leather chair. Helena wasted no time. She opened her cooler bag and presented one of the lunch boxes she had prepared. "Mr. Mueller, I am a professional cook. I have worked in restaurants for over a decade and have developed my own method of preparation that keeps food healthy and tasty for longer. Your company has hundreds of employees who need to be fed every day. I propose to provide quality meals prepared with fresh ingredients and professional techniques." Gail eyed the lunchbox with interest. The aroma emanating from it was undeniably tempting. "Go on. Your company outsources its food service, right? I did some research. The complaints are constant. Flavorless food, small portions, high prices. I can offer something different. Real food prepared with care and knowledge, the kind of meal that makes a difference in an employee's day. The CEO, businessman, stood up and walked to the window, his hands in his suit pockets. And what is your experience with managing large operations? None, Helena admitted, her heart sinking. But I have experience with food and people. I know how to feed hundreds of people with quality and efficiency, and most importantly, I know the value of a well-prepared meal. Gael turned to face her. Are you bold, lady? Helena Salen. Ms. Salen, entering my building without authorization, interrupting my meeting and making a proposal without any formal introduction. Why should I trust you? Helena felt the weight of those words, but she didn't back down. Because you must have eaten hundreds of meals in expensive restaurants, prepared by renowned chefs. But I bet it's been a while since you've tasted food made with the soul. A small smile appeared on the corner of Gael's lips. He picked up the lunchbox and opened it, the aroma of perfectly seasoned stroganoff filling the room. He took a spoonful, and his expression changed subtly. Interesting, he murmured. Very interesting. At that moment, the office doors opened, and an elegant woman walked in unannounced. Veronica Muller, Gael's wife and the group's marketing director, was the epitome of sophistication. Her high heels clicked on the floor as she assessed the scene before her with visible displeasure. Gael, the meeting with the Chinese investors starts in 10 minutes, she said, her gaze fixed on Helena. Veronica, try this, Gael offered, the lunchbox to his wife, who visibly hesitated. I don't think it's appropriate. Prove it. Reluctantly, Veronica took a small portion. Her face remained impassive, but something in her eyes betrayed her surprise at the taste. Mrs. Salen, Gael turned to Helena, tomorrow we'll have an important event in the auditorium. 300 people. I want you to prepare the coffee. Break. Consider this a test. Helena felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. 300 people? Exactly. If the result is satisfactory, we can discuss a more permanent proposal. My assistant will give you the details. Gael, you can't. Be serious, Veronica intervened. We don't know anything about her, her working conditions, her hygiene. That is precisely why it will be a test, he replied firmly. So, Mrs. Salen, do you accept the challenge? Helena thought about Miguel, her empty refrigerator, her overdue bills. I accept. Great. Marina will give you an advance for the initial costs. Don't let me down. When Helena left the building that afternoon, her legs were shaking. She had gotten a chance, a small one, but a real one. Yet something in Veronica Muller's gaze disturbed her. There was more than contempt there. There was something that looked very much like fear. What Helena didn't know was that that day would mark the beginning of a story that would transform not only her life, but the lives of everyone around her. A story of power, desire, and redemption that began there, on the 40th floor of a mirrored building in the heart of São Paulo. News of the event spread quickly through the halls of the Muller Group. Helena barely slept that night, planning every detail of the menu. With the advance payment she received, she was able to buy quality ingredients and rent the necessary equipment. Miguel helped her make lists and organize the shopping, his eyes shining with the possibility of better days. On the morning of the event, Helena arrived at the building before sunrise. The industrial kitchen in the basement, normally used by the catering company she had hired, was at her disposal. As she set up her utensils, she noticed security cameras in every corner, a silent reminder that she was being watched. The next few hours were spent working hard. Helena moved with precision between the ovens and countertops, preparing a selection of delicacies that combined sophistication with comforting flavors. Leek quiches, mini gourmet sandwiches, codfish balls with a touch of palm oil, a tribute to her Bahian roots, and a variety of sweets that included her famous dulce de leche pudding. Around 9 in the morning, when everything seemed under control, Helena noticed that some of the packages of ingredients had been opened. Essential items that she was sure she had set aside the night before were missing. Her heart raced as she realized the sabotage. Looking for something? A Female voice surprised her. It was Amanda Torres, the head nutritionist at the regular catering company. Tall, blonde, and impeccably dressed even at that hour of the morning. "Some of my ingredients disappeared," Helena replied, trying to remain calm. "What a shame," Amanda smiled, not hiding her sarcasm. "You know how it is. Sometimes things just disappear, especially when someone tries to invade territory that isn't theirs." Before Helena could respond, Amanda left, leaving only the echo of her heels on the kitchen floor. The message had been given. She was not welcome there. With less than 2 hours to go until the event began, Helena needed to think fast. She called Miguel, who was at a neighbor's house, and asked him not to worry if she was late picking him up from school. Then she ran to the nearest supermarket, spending her last savings to replace what had been sabotaged. When he returned, he found Veronica Mueller in the kitchen, examining the preparations with a critical eye. "Mrs. Salen," Veronica said, her name as if it was something unpleasant. "I hope you are aware of the importance of this event. We will have international investors present." "Everything is under control, Mrs. Mueller." "Really? Because I'm told you ran out to do some last-minute shopping. That doesn't seem very professional." Helena felt her face burn. There was an unforeseen event, but it has already been resolved. Unforeseen? Veronica stepped closer, her expensive perfume filling the room. "Or incompetence. You know, Helena, may I call you Helena? There's a reason why people like you don't usually get into positions of responsibility. Not everyone is born to lead." The comment hit Helena like a slap, but she maintained her posture. "You're right, not everyone is born to lead. Some are born to transform." Veronica's eyes narrowed. "Be careful, Helena. Too much ambition can be dangerous." When Veronica left, Helena allowed herself a few seconds to take a deep breath. Then she went back to work with even more determination. Every sweet, every savory, every detail would be perfect. Not for Veronica or the investors, but for herself. Tumifi. Event began promptly at 11 o'clock. The auditorium was packed with businessmen in formal attire, all seemingly more interested in their cell phones than in the presentation taking place on stage. But when coffee was served, something changed. The buzz of approval began quietly. Executives who normally barely touched their food came back for seconds. Chinese investors in particular took a special interest in the miniature shrimp bobo that Helena had prepared as a special item. Gail Muller watched everything from afar, an enigmatic smile on his lips. At a certain point, he approached Helena, who was supervising the service. "Impressive, Mrs. Salen," he commented, helping himself to a small chocolate tart, "especially considering the setbacks." Helena looked at him, surprised. "Did you know?" "I know everything that goes on in my building," he replied simply, "including employees who come into the kitchen outside of their working hours." "And yet you did nothing." Gail tasted the pie before answering. "Sometimes, Mrs. Salen, it's important to see how people react under pressure. You didn't just survive the test, you surpassed it." At that moment, Veronica approached, her face a mask of cordiality. "The investors are impressed," she said, though her words sounded acidic, "especially Mr. Chen. He wants to meet our chef." Helena was introduced to the group of investors. Her English was basic, but her food spoke for itself. Mr. Chen, an elderly gentleman with discerning eyes, made a point of praising every item she tried, especially interested in how she managed to keep the flavors so authentic even in small portions. "Talent is talent," he said, smiling, "no matter where it comes from." At the end of the event, Gail called Helena into his office. The afternoon sun tinted the room golden, creating an almost unreal atmosphere. "You have a gift," he said, sitting back in his chair. "And I have a proposal. I want you to take over catering for the entire building." Helena felt her heart race. "The whole building?" 1,200 employees, Mrs. Salen. 3 meals a day, 5 days a week. You will have carte blanche to assemble your team and define menus. In exchange, we offer an exclusive contract and all the necessary support. It was more than Helena had ever dreamed. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Gail stood, approaching. You brought something different to this building today, something that goes beyond food. You brought humanity. Their eyes met, and for a moment the air seemed thicker. Helena felt something strange in her stomach, a sensation that had nothing to do with food. I do, she said, her voice quieter than she intended. Giles smiled, extending his hand to seal the deal. When their fingers touched, Helena felt an electric current run through her body. It was only for an instant, but it was enough to leave her disturbed. Great, he said, holding eye contact for a second longer than necessary. Marina will prepare the contract. You can start on Monday. When Helena left the office, her legs were shaking for reasons she preferred not to analyze. In the elevator, she met Veronica, who was entering in a hurry. Congratulations, Gail's wife said, her tone icy. You got what you wanted, but remember, in this world nothing is free. The doors closed, leaving Helena alone with her thoughts and a growing feeling that she was entering much more dangerous territory than she had imagined. Not only because of the professional challenges that awaited her, but because of something that was beginning to grow in her chest, something she had no right to feel. The following weeks were a whirlwind of changes in Helena's life. The new routine required her to arrive at the Muller Group building before dawn and leave long after sunset. Miguel began spending more time with Donna Zephyr, the neighbor who took care of him after school. Money began to come in, allowing them to move to a better apartment, still small but in a safer neighborhood. The basement's industrial kitchen was completely remodeled to Helena's specifications. She assembled a team of mostly women in similar situations to her own, single, mothers, working women who needed a second chance. Among them was Josiane, a 20-something who had fled domestic violence with a young daughter. The new food service was an immediate success. Muller Group employees not only praised the quality of the food, but also began to bond with the kitchen staff. Helena made a point of circulating around the dining room during mealtimes, listening to suggestions, adapting recipes to suit different dietary restrictions, and making each meal a personalized experience. But not everything was rosy. Amanda Torres, the former nutritionist, had been reassigned to an administrative position and was always ready to stir up trouble. Reports questioning hygiene practices were mysteriously appearing on Gail's desk. Suppliers were receiving anonymous calls suggesting that payments might be delayed. One particularly busy morning, Helena found Gail in the elevator. He was alone, which was rare, and he looked tired. "Good morning, Mrs. Sallon," he said, his woody scent filling the confined space. "Arriving early as always." "Good morning, Mr. Muller. We have a special event today at lunch." "Ah, yes, the mayor's visit." He watched her curiously. "You look worried." Helena hesitated. "Just normal nervousness." "Are you sure?" "Because I received yet another report about alleged irregularities in your operation." The elevator stopped in the basement, but neither of them made any move to get out. "Mr. Muller, Gail," he interrupted her. "After all this time, I think we can dispense with the formalities." Helena felt her face heat up. "Gail, I know there are people who don't want me here, but everything I do is done according to the strictest standards. You can send any inspector at any time." He took a step closer, the space in the elevator seeming to shrink. "I know. That's why I haven't taken any action regarding these allegations yet. I trust your work, Helena." The way he said her name made something vibrate inside her. "Thank you for your trust." "It's not just trust," he said, his voice lower. "It's admiration. You've transformed not just the food, but the entire environment. People are happier, more productive. You've brought soul to this place." The elevator started working again, breaking the moment. Helena left in a hurry, her heart beating wildly. Throughout the day, she tried to concentrate on work, but Gail's words echoed in her mind. That afternoon, while overseeing the cleanup after the successful lunch with the mayor, Helena received an unexpected visitor. Veronica Muller entered the kitchen like a gust of icy wind, her Louboutin heels echoing on the floor. "We need to talk," she said, dismissing any greeting. Helena led her to her small room, a modest space she had turned into an office. Veronica refused to sit down. "I'll be blunt," she began, her blue eyes fixed on Helena. "You're getting too close to my husband." Helena felt as if she had been slapped. "Mrs. Muller, Don't interrupt me," Veronica cut in. "I'm not an idiot, Helena. I see how you look at him, how you smile when he's around, and worse, I see how he's changing. Did you know that yesterday he refused dinner at Fasano to eat here, in the employee cafeteria?" "This has nothing to do with me," Helena tried to argue, but her voice betrayed her insecurity. "It has everything to do with you," Veronica approached, threatening. "Gail may be fascinated by your story of overcoming, by your food, by your simple charm, but make no mistake, you are an employee, a service provider, and I am his wife, the woman who built this company alongside him, who sacrificed a promising career in advertising to be the image of this group." Helena stood her ground, though her heart was racing. "Mrs. Muller, there is nothing between me and your husband, other than a professional relationship." "Still," Veronica smiled, a cold smile that didn't reach her eyes, "but I know women like you, Helena, ambitious, smart, who use their apparent humility as a weapon. You must think you're special because he compliments your food, because he smiles when you're around. But do you know what happens to employees who get involved with their boss? They disappear, they simply disappear, with a good letter of recommendation and a confidentiality agreement. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you. As a woman, stay where you belong, Helena. Keep doing your job, which is very good, by the way. But don't get things mixed up. Gail might be curious now, but he always comes back to me. Always." With that, Veronica left, leaving behind only the echo of her words and her expensive perfume. Helena collapsed into her chair, trembling. The worst part wasn't Veronica's veiled threat. It was realizing that there was truth in her words. Something was blossoming between her and Gail, something dangerous and forbidden that she tried to deny even to herself. That night, Helena took longer than usual to close the kitchen. When she finally finished, she found Gail waiting in the parking lot, leaning against his black Porsche. "Want a ride?" he offered, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Helena felt her heart skip a beat. "No, thank you. I have to pick up my son from the neighbors." "Then let me take you there. It's late. The streets are dangerous." "Better not," she replied, firmer than she felt. "People might misinterpret it." Giles stepped closer, his face partially illuminated by the parking lot lights. "And you care what people think?" "I care about what's right," Helena replied, though every fiber of her being screamed to accept the ride, to spend a few more minutes with him. "And what is right, Helena?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "Deny what is happening between us?" It was the first time either of them had verbalized that growing tension. Helena felt as if the air had grown thicker. "Nothing's wrong," she said, more to herself than to him. "You're my boss, you're married, and you are the most extraordinary woman I have ever met," Gail added, taking another step toward her. "It's not just your cooking, Helena. It's your heart, your strength, your dignity." They were dangerously close now. Helena could feel the heat emanating from his body, his intoxicating scent, the electricity in the air between them. "Please," she whispered, not knowing exactly what she was asking, for him to move away or come closer. The sound of footsteps echoing in the parking lot made them separate abruptly. It was a security guard making his rounds. Helena took advantage of the interruption to move away, her heart beating like a drum in her chest. "Good evening, Mr. Muller," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "Helena," he called when she was already a few steps away. "This isn't over." She didn't answer. She kept walking without looking back because she knew that if she did, she wouldn't have the strength to resist. That night, while she hugged Miguel, who was already sleeping, Helena cried silently. She had worked so hard, fought so hard to get where she was. She couldn't risk everything for a forbidden feeling. She couldn't. But her heart didn't seem to understand that. The days that followed the meeting in the parking lot were an exercise in self-control for Helena. She dedicated herself even more to work, arriving early and leaving late, avoiding any possibility of meeting Gail alone. When he appeared in the kitchen, she always made sure there were other people around. Menu meetings began to be conducted with Marina, his assistant, as an intermediary. But the universe seemed to be conspiring to put them on a collision course. On a particularly busy Friday, Helena received an urgent message. The Muller Group would be hosting a charity dinner on Saturday night. The event was originally scheduled to take place at Fasano, but there was a problem with the hotel's kitchen. Veronica was in Europe for a marketing conference, and Gail decided that the dinner would be held in the company's own building. But tomorrow, how are we going to prepare a dinner for 200 high society guests with less than 24 hours? Notice? Josiane asked, panicked. Helena took a deep breath, her brain already calculating possibilities. We'll make it. Call Rita and Conceição. We need backup. And send a message to all our suppliers. It's an emergency. The team worked all night. Helena turned stress into creativity, developing a menu that combined haute cuisine with unique Brazilian touches. Shrimp in pumpkin with chestnut farofa, filet mignon medallions in jabuticaba sauce, pequi risotto with crispy kale. Each dish was a story of Brazil told through flavors. At 5 o'clock on Saturday morning, when the first rays of sunlight were beginning to color the São Paulo sky, Gael appeared in the kitchen. Helena was alone, finishing the mise en place of the main dishes. Her hair was tied up in a messy bun, her face marked by fatigue, but her eyes shone with determination. "You didn't go home," he stated, his voice echoing in the silent kitchen. Helena continued working, not looking at him. There was no way. We need everything to be perfect. Helena, the way he said her name made her stomach knot. Look at me. She closed her eyes for a moment, gathering her strength before turning around. Gail was more casual than usual, wearing jeans and a polo shirt that still probably cost more than her monthly salary. "You didn't have to do this," he said, stepping closer. "We could have cancelled, rescheduled, and tarnished the company's reputation, leave 200 guests in the lurch." Helena shook her head. "No, we can do it. We will do it." Gail smiled, that smile that made something inside her melt. "Us? Since when do you care so much about the company's reputation?" "Since you trusted me," the words came out before she could stop them. "Since you gave me a chance when no one else would." The silence that followed was filled with tension. Gail took another step toward her, eliminating almost all the space between them. "It wasn't just chance, Helena," his voice was hoarse. "It was fate. You walking into the building that day changed everything." "Please," she whispered, but didn't pull away. "We can't we what?" He was so close now that she could feel his heat. "Can't we admit that there's something going on? That every time we see each other it's like the world stops?" "You're married," Helena managed to say, though her voice was shaking. "You're my boss, you have a reputation to uphold. And you think I don't know that?" Gail ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "You think I don't try to fight it, but then I see you. I see your strength, your dignity, the way you've transformed not only this place, but everyone around. So and nothing makes sense anymore." The sound of doors opening in the hallway made them move quickly away. It was the crew arriving for the morning shift. Helena felt her face heat up, grateful for the interruption. "Mr. Muller," she said, forcing a professional tone. "I promise the dinner will be a success." He watched her for a long moment before nodding. "I know it will be. You never disappoint me, Helena." The day passed in a blur of frenetic activity. By evening, the event hall on the 40th floor had been transformed. Elegantly decorated tables, soft lighting, a stunning view of the city. Guests began arriving promptly at 8 o'clock. Businessmen, politicians, celebrities, all in formal attire. Helena coordinated everything behind the scenes, ensuring that every dish was perfect, that every detail was impeccable. Through the kitchen doors she could see Gail moving among the guests, charming and elegant in his tuxedo. Every now and then their eyes would meet, and she felt that familiar electric current run through her body. The dinner was a resounding success. The compliments about the kitchen kept coming in. A famous TV presenter insisted on meeting the chef. A governor asked for Helena's contact information for events in Brasilia. It was past midnight when the last guests began to say goodbye. Helena was exhausted but satisfied. Her staff had already left after a special thank you and the promise of compensatory time off. She was finishing organizing the last things when she felt a presence behind her. She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. "Dinner was a triumph," Gail said softly. "You're amazing." Helena turned, ready to thank him formally, but the words died in her throat. He had taken off his jacket and loosened his tie. His eyes shone in a way she had never seen before. "I should go," she muttered, but her feet felt nailed to the floor. "Stay," he pleaded, his voice barely above a whisper. "Just a little longer." "Why?" "Because I need to tell you something." Gail took a step toward him. "Something I've been holding in for weeks." Helena's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. "Don't say it, please." "Why not?" He was dangerously close now. "Why can't we be honest about what we're feeling?" "Because some truths are too dangerous," she replied, her voice shaking. "Because there are people who could get hurt. My son, your wife." "What about us?" Gail raised his hand, almost touching her face, but stopping millimeters from her skin. "Aren't we hurting ourselves too by denying this?" Helena closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of his hand close to her face. "I need to go." This time, she managed to move. She picked up her bag and walked towards the door, each step taking a monumental effort. "Helena," his voice made her stop in the doorway. "I've never felt this way before, about anyone." She didn't turn around, she couldn't. If she looked at him now, her entire resolve would crumble. "Good evening, Mr. Muller." In the elevator, alone, Helena finally allowed the tears to fall. She was in love with Gail Muller. The truth she had tried so hard to deny was now screaming in her chest, impossible to ignore. And the worst part, she knew he was in love. With her, too. But some loves are born to never happen. Some stories need to remain untold, or at least that was what she desperately tried to convince herself as the elevator descended, taking her away from the man who had revolutionized her world. Monday came with news that shook the Muller group. Veronica was returning from Europe earlier than expected. The buzz in the hallways was intense. They said she had cancelled important commitments after receiving an anonymous call about the charity dinner. About how Gail and Helena had been seen alone in the kitchen late at night. Helena tried to remain calm as she coordinated the lunch service, but her stomach was in knots. She knew it was only a matter of time before Veronica showed up, and she was right. The confrontation happened early in the afternoon, when the kitchen was relatively empty. Veronica entered like a hurricane, her heels echoing menacingly on the floor. "So this is how you respect my warning?" She lashed out without preamble, her normally controlled face contorted with anger. "By arranging romantic dinners with my husband?" Helena kept her composure, although her heart was beating wildly. "It was a charity dinner, Mrs. Muller, with 200 guests." "Don't make a fool of me." Veronica slammed her fist on the counter, making the pans clang. "I have sources in this building, Helena. I know you were alone after everyone left. I know about the looks, the chance encounters, in the elevator. You are misinterpreting things." "Am I?" Veronica laughed, the sound cold and sharp. "You know what else I found out? That you have a son. Miguel, right? It must be hard raising a child alone, even more so if you suddenly lost your job." Helena felt her blood run cold. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm giving you one last chance." Veronica stepped closer, her blue eyes hard as ice. "Quit your job today. Say you got a better offer, that you need to devote more time to your son. Make up any excuse. Do it, and I guarantee you'll leave here. With great references and a generous severance package. What if I don't accept?" "Then I will destroy you," the threat came out as a venomous whisper. "I will make your life hell until you have no choice but to crawl out of here. And believe me, Helena, I have enough resources and connections to ensure that you never get a decent job in this city again." Before Helena could respond, the kitchen door opened. It was Gail. He stopped when he saw the scene, his face hardening. As he noticed the tension in the room, What's going on here? Nothing, dear. Veronica instantly changed her tone, an artificial smile appearing on her lips. Just congratulating Helena on the success of the dinner. Gail looked from one to the other, clearly not believing it. Helena, is everything okay? There was genuine concern in her voice, something that did not go unnoticed by Veronica. Helena saw something flicker in her wife's eyes, something dangerous. Yes, it is, Mr. Muller, Helena managed to say. Excuse me, I need to supervise dinner preparations. She left quickly, her legs shaking. She spent the rest of the day on autopilot, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. At night, after Miguel fell asleep, she sat on the small balcony of her apartment watching the city lights. She had worked so hard to get where she was. It wasn't just a job. It was a chance to give her son a better life, to prove that a woman from humble backgrounds could indeed make her own way. But now, everything was threatened, not just because of Veronica, but because of her own feelings. Her phone vibrated. It was a message from Gail. We need to talk, please. Helena looked at the screen for a long time before replying, There's nothing to talk about. The answer came instantly. There's everything to talk about. Meet me tomorrow. Before work, 5:30 at the cafe on the corner. She knew she should refuse, that every minute alone with Gail was a risk, but her fingers typed OK before her reason could stop her. The next morning, the cafe was practically empty at this hour. Gail was already there when she arrived, sitting at an inconspicuous table in the back. He stood up when he saw her, his eyes roaming her face with concern. Veronica threatened you, didn't she? He got straight to the point. Helena sat down, her hands shaking slightly. It doesn't matter. It does matter. Gail leaned across the table, his voice low and intense. Tell me exactly what she said. What for? What are you going to do? Fight with your wife over an employee? You're not just an employee, he replied fervently. You're everything I never knew I needed in my life. Helena felt tears forming in her eyes. Don't do this, please. Do what? Tell the truth? That since you walked into that building, my life has taken on colors I didn't even know existed. That every moment away from you is torture? Stop! She raised her voice higher than she intended, drawing curious glances. She lowered her voice before continuing. You're married. You have a settled life, a reputation to uphold, and I have a son to raise. Gail ran his hand over his face, looking suddenly tired. My marriage with Veronica. It's been a facade for years. We've become partners more than spouses. She has her affairs I pretend not to know. We keep up appearances for the sake of the company, the shareholders. And that's supposed to make me feel better? Helena asked bitterly. Knowing I'm just next on the list? You would never be just another one. He reached across the table, almost touching hers. What I feel for you is unlike anything I've ever felt in my life. It's real. It's deep. It's impossible, she finished, pulling his hand away. Your wife has made it very clear what will happen if I don't step aside, and I can't risk my son's future. I can protect you. I can make sure she doesn't— No, you can't, Helena interrupted him, standing up. Because the moment you do, everyone will know why. And then it won't just be my reputation at stake, but yours as well, the company's, everything you've built. Gail also stood up, his eyes fixed on hers. What if I don't care about that? But I care, she said softly. I care about you too much to let that happen. With those words, she turned and left the cafe, leaving behind not only Gail, but also her broken heart. The tears she had been holding back finally fell, mixing with the fine drizzle that was beginning to fall over São Paulo. What she didn't see was Amanda Torres sitting in a car across the street, photographing every moment of the encounter with Wai, a mischievous smile on her lips. The photos of the meeting at the cafe spread through the Muller group like wildfire. It wasn't long before printed copies began to circulate discreetly among the employees, always accompanied by whispers and sidelong glances. Helena felt the malicious comments following her steps through the corridors, but she kept her head held high, concentrating on her work with even greater dedication. On a particularly tense morning, Josiane hurried into her room, her face pale, so with worry. "Helena, you need to see this." She held out her tablet, showing the front page of a business gossip blog. Helena's heart sank when she read the headline, "Forbidden Romance Rocks Muller Empire. Sources confirm affair between CEO and humble chef." The text was poisonous, full of malicious insinuations and anonymous testimonies that suggested that her professional rise had less to do with talent and more to do with personal favors. "Who published this?" Helena asked, her voice shaking with anger. "The blog is anonymous, but—" Josiane hesitated. "Everyone is talking about how Amanda was bragging at happy hour yesterday, saying that certain people would learn not to steal other people's places." Before Helena could answer, Marina, Gail's assistant, appeared at the door. "Helena, emergency meeting in the boardroom. Now." The walk to the 40th floor was the longest of her life. When the elevator doors opened, Helena found not only the entire board of directors, but also the group's main shareholders. Gail was standing by the window, his face tense. Veronica took her usual place at the table, a contented smile barely concealed on her lips. Mrs. Salen, the chairman of the board, a white-haired gentleman named Ricardo Meneses, spoke. "I imagine you are already aware of the embarrassment we are facing." Helena stood her ground. "Yes, sir, and I would like to make it clear that the accusations are completely unfounded." "Unfounded?" Veronica let out a dry laugh. "And the photos? The secret meetings? The glances?" "Veronica," Gail spoke for the first time, his voice thick with warning. "No, Gail," she stood up theatrically. "Enough pretending nothing is happening. This woman is destroying not only our marriage, but the reputation of this company." "The only thing I'm destroying is the losses you had with food," Helena replied, surprising everyone with her firmness. "I've reduced costs, increased employee satisfaction, and created a program for total food utilization that saves millions a year. This is in the reports I present monthly, which I imagine you've never bothered to read." A murmur went around the room, Helena continued, "and yes, I did meet with Mr. Muller at the cafe to discuss expanding the meal program to the branches, something that is also documented in the corporate emails." "Very convenient," Veronica hissed. "Mrs. Salen," Ricardo Meneses interjected, "I understand your professional arguments, which are truly impressive, but understand our position. This group has an image to protect. We cannot afford scandals, especially on the eve of an IPO. So they're going to fire me based on blog gossip?" "No," Gail said, walking to the center of the room. "We won't." Veronica turned to him, her eyes flashing. "What?" "Helena Salen is the most competent professional that has ever worked at this company," Gail continued, his voice firm. "She transformed not only our food operation, but the corporate culture itself. If we are going to go public, we need success stories like hers to present to investors." "Gail is right," one of the younger shareholders said. "The numbers don't lie. Her program is an international success story." "So we're going to keep a homewrecker in the company?" Veronica asked, her voice dripping with venom. "Enough!" Gail slammed his fist on the table, startling everyone. "Enough with the unfounded accusations, enough with the persecution, and since you want to bring up personal issues in this meeting, Veronica, how about we talk about your frequent trips to Paris, about your personal trainer who charges more than a CEO?" The silence that followed was deafening. Veronica visibly paled. "Gentlemen," Gail addressed the board, "I suggest we end this meeting. Ms. Salen remains in her position, with my full support. As for the gossip, our legal department is already taking action against the blog and anyone else involved in spreading slander." The councillors began to stand up, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Ricardo Meneses was the last to leave, giving Gail a meaningful look before closing the door. There were only the three of them left in the room, Helena, Gail, and Veronica. The air was thick with tension. "You're going to regret this," Veronica said finally, picking up her bag. "You're both going to regret it." As she left, slamming the door behind her, Helena finally allowed her legs to tremble. Gael approached, but she took a step back. "I shouldn't have done that," she said quietly. Now she'll do everything she can to destroy us. She was already doing it, he replied softly, and I couldn't let her. I couldn't stand by and watch her try to destroy the woman I— No, Helena interrupted him, holding up her hand. Don't say it. Please. Why? Why do we keep pretending there's nothing between us? Because now it's even more impossible, she replied, tears forming in her eyes. Because you just put your reputation, your company at risk because of me, and I can't carry that weight. Helen. Let her go, she begged, her voice breaking, before it's too late. But they both knew as she hurried from the room that it was already too late. What they felt for each other had grown beyond their control, like a force of nature that could no longer be contained. And now, with Veronica publicly humiliated and thirsting for revenge, the true test of their strength was only just beginning. In the elevator, Helena allowed a single tear to run down her face. She had won this battle, but the war was far from over, and the price of victory might be too high for her heart to bear. The following weeks brought a semblance of calm to the Muller group, but it was like the silence before a storm. Veronica no longer appeared at the building, having temporarily moved to her country house in Campos de Jordão. The photos and gossip had diminished thanks to the quick action of the legal department. Amanda Torres resigned before the internal investigation caught up with her. Helena threw herself into her work with even greater intensity, expanding her food program and starting a social project to empower women in vulnerable situations. Her evenings were dedicated exclusively to Miguel, who was increasingly brilliant at school, proud of his mother's achievements. One Friday afternoon, while finalizing the menu for the following week, Helena received an unexpected visitor. It was Ricardo Menezes, the chairman of the board. "Mrs. Sallin," he said, sitting down uninvited. "We need to talk." Helena felt a chill down her spine. "Of course, Mr. Menezes. You should be aware that our IPO is scheduled for next month," he began, his casual tone belying the seriousness in his eyes. "It will be the largest IPO of the year in the Brazilian market." "Yes, sir. We're even preparing a special menu for—" "The problem isn't the menu, Mrs. Sallin," he interrupted gently. "It's the company's image. Foreign investors are conservative. They value stability, family, tradition." Helena felt her stomach sink. "And what does that have to do with me?" "You're smart," Menezes smiled humorlessly. "You know exactly what I'm talking about. The rumors about your relationship with Gail are affecting investor confidence." "There is no relationship at all," she protested, but her voice sounded weak even to her own ears. "It doesn't matter whether it exists or not," he continued. "What matters is perception, and right now, perception is costing us millions in market. Valuation." Helena felt her blood boil. "So that's it? My work, my dedication, everything I've built here means nothing to gossip?" "On the contrary," Menezes pulled an envelope from his briefcase. "It means so much that we are willing to compensate you generously." She stared at the envelope as if it were a poisonous snake. "Are you offering me money to quit?" "I'm offering you an opportunity," he corrected. 2 million reais, plus an impeccable letter of recommendation and contacts with the best restaurants in São Paulo. You could open your own business and give your son an even better life. Helena felt angry tears forming in her eyes. "What if I refuse?" "Then I'm afraid we'll have to take more drastic measures," he sighed. "There are certain irregularities in your hiring that could be problematic if they were to become public." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm being realistic," Menezes stood up. "You have until Monday to decide. Think about your son, Helena, about his future." After he left, Helena sat motionless in her chair, the envelope untouched on her desk. Her cell phone vibrated. It was a message from Gail. "I heard Menezes was here. We need to talk." She didn't answer. Instead, she packed her things and left early, something she never did. She needed to think. She needed to breathe. Her feet took her to Ibirapuera Park. The sun was setting, painting the sky in orange tones that were reflected in the lake. Helena sat on a bench watching families strolling, couples holding hands, people running with their dogs, normal lives, without the weight of impossible loves and impossible choices. I knew I'd find you here. Giles' voice startled her. He was standing next to her, jacket off, tie loose, looking as tired as she felt. As you mentioned once that this was your favorite place in town, he sat down next to her, keeping a respectful distance. You said it was where you came to think when life got too complicated. Helena felt her heart tighten. It was exactly the kind of detail that shouldn't mean so much, that shouldn't make her chest ache with longing for something she never really had. Menezes offered you money, didn't he? Gale asked after a moment of silence. 2 million, she replied with a humorless laugh. Apparently that's the price of my dignity. Don't accept it, he turned to her, his eyes intense. I can fix this. I can buy out the disgruntled shareholders, I can... No, you can't, she interrupted him gently. Not this time, because this isn't just about money or stock. It's about the future of the company, of hundreds of employees. It's about your legacy. What about our future? He asked, his voice hoarse with emotion. What about what we feel? What we feel? Helena fought back tears. What we feel is too real to be built on ruins. I couldn't live with myself knowing that I destroyed everything you built. Helena, look at me, he said, and when she did, he saw that her eyes were also teary. Since you came into my life, I've realized that everything I've built means nothing, without true love, without real purpose. Gale, no, let me finish. He leaned in a little closer. You've shown me that success isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about changing lives, making a difference. You've done that here. You've changed not only the company but me as well. Helena felt a tear run down her face. And that's exactly why I need to go. Because if I stay, everything you've learned, everything you've built will crumble, and I can't be responsible for that. So that's it? He asked, his voice breaking. We're going to let them win? Let fear win? Sometimes, she replied, rising, the greatest proof of love is knowing when to leave. Helena, please. Goodbye, Gale, she said, gathering all her strength to turn around and start walking. I love you, he said to her back, the words laden with all the pain and truth they had tried to deny for so long. Helena paused for a moment, her heart screaming at her to turn around, run into his arms, send the whole world to hell. But instead she kept walking, each step carrying a piece of her broken heart with it. The sun had completely set now, leaving only the night and silence as witnesses to yet another love sacrificed on the altar of social conventions and other people's expectations. But as she walked away from the man she loved, Helena didn't know that fate still had one last card to play. On Monday, Helena arrived at the Mueller Group earlier than usual. Her resignation letter, typed and signed, weighed like lead in her bag. She had spent the entire weekend thinking about how she would break the news to her team, especially Josiane and the other women who had found a new lease on life through her project. The building was silent at that hour, only the distant sound of cleaning equipment echoing through the hallways. When the elevator doors opened in the basement, Helena found Josiane already in the kitchen, a worried expression on her young face. You need to see this, Josiane said without preamble, holding out her cell phone. It was a report from the country's leading business newspaper. The headline made Helena's blood run cold. Family scandal threatens Mueller Group's IPO. Veronica Mueller files multi-million-dollar lawsuit against her husband. Veronica is claiming that Gale embezzled money from the company, Josiane explained, her voice shaking. She's saying he created ghost projects to benefit certain people. Helena sat down heavily in the nearest chair. My God! There's more, Josiane continued. She presented alleged evidence of overbilling in our department. She's saying that the money we saved through the food waste program was actually diverted to a private account. But this is absurd, Helena exclaimed. Every report is audited, every penny is documented. I know, but Josiane hesitated. Helena, she has bank statements. They show regular deposits into an account in your name. The world seemed to spin around Helena. What account? I don't have any accounts other than my savings account. Before Josiane could answer, Helena's cell phone rang. It was Marina, Gael's assistant. "Helena," Marina's normally controlled voice sounded distressed. "The board is in extraordinary session. They want you and all your financial documents. Now." The walk to the boardroom was a blur. Helena gathered up every file she could, including her personal notes and bank statements. When she reached the 40th floor, she found a scene of controlled chaos. Executives scurried about. Phones rang incessantly, and at the center of it all was Gael, looking as if he had aged 10 years over the weekend. "Helena," he took a step towards her. But Ricardo Menezes stopped him. "No contact between you," the board chairman ordered. "This meeting will be conducted in full transparency and in the presence of our lawyers." The next few hours were a nightmare of questioning, document analysis, and veiled accusations. The group's lawyers scoured every aspect of Helena's financial life, every decision made in her department, every invoice from the last few months. "This Cayman account," one of the lawyers pointed to a document. "Do you deny that it's yours?" "For the 1,000th time, I don't have any bank accounts outside the country," Helena replied, exhausted. "I never did. I can barely save enough for my son's college education. However, we have documents showing your signature on the opening of this account," another lawyer interjected, "and the deposits coincide exactly with the dates of the major changes you implemented in the food service sector." "This is ridiculous," Gael said, his voice thick with restrained anger. "Do you really believe that Helena would be capable of—" "Gael," Menezes interrupted, "your situation is already complicated enough. I suggest you remain silent." That was when the door to the room burst open. Veronica walked in, impeccably dressed in a black suit, followed by her own team of lawyers. "You don't need to suggest anything, Ricardo," she said, a cold smile on her lips. "Gael and his protégé have already said too much in the last few months. Now it's time to let the evidence speak." She gestured, and one of her lawyers opened a folder, spreading documents out on the table. There were photos, dozens of them. Helena and Gael in the cafe, in the parking lot, in the park. Some of them looked intimate, taken with a telephoto lens, creating the illusion of closeness where there was none. "It's not just a matter of embezzlement," Veronica continued, her voice dripping with venom. "It's a matter of character, of betrayal. Not just marital, but corporate." Helena felt her blood boil. Years of humiliation, of having to prove her worth, of fighting against prejudice, it all culminated in that moment. "Enough," she said, standing up. "You want to talk about character? Then let's talk. Let's talk about how you tried to blackmail me, about how you had my first event sabotaged, about how you planted false evidence to incriminate me." "Be careful with your accusations, dear," Veronica hissed. "You have no proof of any of this." "No," a voice came from the doorway. "But I do." Everyone turned around. It was Amanda Torres. "Amanda?" Veronica paled visibly. "What are you doing here?" "Which I should have done a long time ago," Amanda replied, entering the room. She carried a flash drive and a determined expression. "Paying my conscience." She turned to the laptop connected to the big screen in the room. "I spent months following Mrs. Muller's orders, photographing, bugging, planting evidence. At first, it was just about getting my job back, but then—" "Shut up!" Veronica advanced towards him, but was restrained by her own lawyer. "Then I saw what you were truly capable of," Amanda continued, plugging in the flash drive. "I saw how you destroyed people for the sheer pleasure of it, and I kept everything. Every email, every message, every order you gave to forge documents." The screen came to life, displaying a series of conversations, documents and recordings. It was all there, Veronica ordering the sabotage of Helena's first event, coordinating with an accountant to create fake accounts, planning every step of the destruction of reputations. The silence that followed was deafening. Ricardo Menezes was the first to recover. "Security officers," he called in a controlled voice, "please escort Mrs. Muller and her lawyers out and call the police." "You can't do this," Veronica screamed, her veneer of sophistication completely shattered. "I built this company as much as you did, Gael. I sacrificed my life for it." "No, Veronica," Gael replied, his voice thick with an ancient sadness. You sacrificed your humanity for power, and now it's over. As Veronica was taken away, still shouting threats, Helena remained motionless, trying to process everything that had happened. She felt exhausted, relieved, and scared at the same time. Ms. Salin, Ricardo. Menezes addressed her after a long moment. On behalf of the board, I apologize for the unfounded accusations. Your position in the company is more than secure if you still wish to stay. Helena looked at her resignation letter, still untouched in her folder, and then at Gail, who was watching her with an intensity that made her heart race. I need to think, she said finally. I need time to— All the time you need, Gail interrupted softly. We have all the time in the world right now. And for the first time in months, Helena allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, some loves were too strong to be denied, even if the path to them was paved with thorns and tears. The days that followed Veronica's downfall were a whirlwind of change for the Muller Group. The press feasted on the scandal, but surprisingly, the way the company handled the situations with transparency and quick decisions ended up strengthening its image. The IPO was postponed but not cancelled, and Gail's actions to protect employees from moral harassment were well received by the market. Helena threw herself into her work with renewed energy, expanding her social projects and implementing new ideas that she had long kept in reserve. Her professional training program for women in vulnerable situations gained its own space on the ground floor of the building, with an industrial kitchen and classroom. She and Gail maintained a professional distance in the following weeks, communicating mainly through Marina or in meetings with other people. But their eyes met occasionally in the hallways, carrying unspoken promises and feelings that could no longer be denied. One Friday afternoon, when most of the staff had already left, Helena found an envelope on her desk. Inside was a handwritten card. Meet me at the place where it all began. 7 p.m. Her heart skipped a beat as she recognized Gail's handwriting. The place where it all began, she knew exactly where it was. The sidewalk in front of the building where she used to sell lunchboxes, where she had made the decision that would change her life forever. At 7 p.m. sharp, Helena left the building. The sun had already set, but the night was clear and mild. Gail was there without a jacket, his shirt sleeves rolled up, looking younger and more relaxed than she had seen him in months. "Hi," he said simply as she approached. "Hi," she replied, suddenly feeling shy. "Do you know what I admire most about you?" Gail asked after a moment of silence. "Your courage. Not just the courage to enter that building that day, but the courage every day after that. To face prejudice, to fight for what you believe in, to not let yourself be corrupted." Helena felt tears forming in her eyes. "Gail, let me finish." He took a step toward her. "You've taught me so much, Helena, about dignity, about real purpose, about true love." "We can't," she whispered, but her voice no longer held the certainty it had before. "Why not?" He was so close now that she could feel his warmth. "There are no more impediments. The divorce is underway. Veronica is being sued. The company is stronger than ever." "What about the shareholders? The press? What will people say?" "To hell with people," Gail smiled, that smile that made her heart melt. "We've lived too long caring about what other people think. I love you, Helena Salin. I love you with an intensity I never thought possible, and I won't let anything separate us anymore." Before she could respond, he took something out of his pocket, a small blue velvet box. "It's not a proposal," he quickly clarified when he saw her wide eyes. "Not yet. It's a promise that we'll do this right, in our time, in our way." He opened the box, revealing a delicate white gold ring with a single sapphire. "It's a reminder that some loves are too rare to waste." Helena looked at the ring, at the man in front of her, at the sidewalk where it had all begun. She thought about all the battles she had faced, all the times she had almost given up, all the people who had tried to put her down. "Yes," she said finally, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes. Yes to the promise," she smiled through her tears. "Yes to doing it our way. Yes to us." Gael slid the ring onto her finger with hands. That trembled slightly. When their eyes met again, there were no more barriers, no more fears. There was only truth, only love. The kiss that followed was soft, tender, full of promise and possibility. There, on the same sidewalk where Helena had once sold lunchboxes, not only a love was born, but a new story. A story of overcoming, of courage, of transformation. Days later, the Müller Group announced a restructuring. The social program created by Helena would be expanded to all branches, becoming an independent foundation. She would be the executive director, with full autonomy to implement her training and empowerment projects. The press speculated, of course. There were snide comments, sidelong glances. But this time was different. This time they were together, strong in their truth, unshakable in their love. Miguel adapted surprisingly well to the changes. Gael gained his trust little by little, with patience and respect, never trying to replace the father figure, but building his own relationship with the boy. One Sunday morning, as they prepared breakfast together in Gael's, now their penthouse, Helena watched the two of them talking animatedly about a science project. Her heart overflowed with love and gratitude. "What are you thinking about?" Gael asked, noticing her distant gaze. "How amazing life is," she replied, smiling. "How sometimes we have to lose everything to find something greater." He hugged her, from behind, gently kissing her neck. "You didn't lose everything. You conquered everything with your strength, your dignity, your heart." Helena turned in his arms, looking into the eyes of the man she had learned to love against all odds. "We conquered," she corrected, "together." Miguel made a playful sound of disgust at the kiss that followed, but his smile was genuine. He had never seen his mother so happy, so fulfilled, so herself. Outside, São Paulo was beginning to wake up to another day. But inside that apartment, three people who fate had brought together in an unlikely way were savoring something precious, the certainty that some loves are too strong to be denied. And that sometimes, just sometimes, the most beautiful stories are those that begin with a courageous woman, a lunchbox, and a heart that refuses to give up. Epilogue, 1 year later. The Müller Group's event hall was unrecognizable, where cold tones and austere decor had previously predominated. Color and life were now exploding. Arrangements of tropical flowers decorated the tables, and the aroma of spices filled the air. It was the graduation ceremony for the first class of the Helena Salon Foundation. 50 women, all with stories of overcoming similar challenges to Helena's, received their professional gastronomy training certificates. Many had already been hired by renowned restaurants, while others were starting their own businesses with microcredit provided by the foundation. Helena watched everything from the stage, where she had just given her speech. She wore a simple but elegant blue dress, and the sapphire ring on her finger sparkled under the lights. Beside her, Gael held her hand, his thumb gently stroking her skin in a gesture that had become familiar and precious. "Mommy." Miguel ran to her as soon as he stepped off the stage. At 9, he was taller and more confident, flourishing in an environment of love and stability. "Did you see Donna Maria crying when she got her certificate? She said she's going to open a bakery." Helena hugged her son, feeling her heart overflow with love. "Yes, I did, my love, and I'm sure it will be the best bakery in the neighborhood." "Absolutely," he agreed enthusiastically, "especially since I helped her choose the recipes." Gael laughed, ruffling the boy's hair affectionately. His relationship with Miguel had developed naturally, built on mutual respect and genuine interest. The boy now called him Uncle Gabi, a nickname that the powerful CEO of the Müller Group carried with pride. The party continued into the night. Josiane, now the foundation's operations director, coordinated a team of graduates who served delicacies prepared by themselves. The party was so successful that several business people present were already placing orders for their events. In Nafru, a calmer moment, Helena found herself alone with Gael in one of the corners of the hall. He hugged her from behind, and together they watched the celebration. "Happy?" he asked softly in her ear. "More than I thought possible," she replied, leaning back against him. "Sometimes it still feels like a dream." "If this is a dream, I don't want to wake up." Gail gently kissed her neck. "You've transformed not only my life, but the lives of so many people. Did you know that 3 of our branches have already implemented similar programs?" Helena smiled, turning in his arms to face him. "And to think it all started with a few unsold lunchboxes." "No," he corrected, gently touching her face. "It all started with an extraordinary woman who had the courage to believe in herself, who taught me that true love isn't just about feelings, but about transformation." "We changed together," she said softly, "and we keep changing." Gail smiled, that smile that still made her heart skip a beat. "Speaking of transformation, what do you think about making it official?" Helena blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" He took a small box from his pocket, this time made of red velvet. "This time, it's a proposal," he said, opening the box to reveal a delicate, elegant diamond ring. "Because now is the right time, our way." The tears came before she could stop them. "Are you sure? With everything that's happened, all the gossip—" "I've never been so sure in my life," he replied fervently. "I want to build a future with you and Miguel. I want to wake up every day by your side. I want to continue watching you transform the world with your huge heart and your infinite strength." "Yes," she whispered, and then louder, "Yes." The kiss that followed was interrupted by applause. They broke apart to find the entire room watching. The graduates, the staff, Miguel, who was jumping for joy. There was no judgment in the looks, just celebration and genuine joy. Later that night, already at home, Helena was on the balcony watching the lights of São Paulo. Gael joined her, bringing 2 glasses of wine. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, handing her a glass. "How unpredictable life is," she replied, smiling. "How sometimes our greatest fears turn out to be our greatest blessings. And sometimes," he added, hugging her, "the most impossible love becomes the truest." Helena looked at the 2 rings on her hand, the sapphire of promise and the diamond of the future, symbols of a journey that began in pain and ended in triumph. Proof that some loves are too strong to be denied, some destinies too great to be avoided. Miguel appeared on the balcony, still dressed for the party. "Can I stay up a little longer? Just today?" Helena and Gael exchanged a knowing look before making room for him between them. There, embraced under the starry sky of São Paulo, they were more than an unlikely couple who defied conventions. They were a family built on the foundations of love, respect, and courage. And Helena knew, with a certainty that came from the depths of her soul, that all the struggle had been worth it. Because sometimes you have to lose your fear to find love. You have to face storms to discover your own strength. You have to risk everything to gain something even greater. Her gaze met Gail's over Miguel's head, and in the smile they shared there was a whole story of overcoming, transformation, and true love. A story that began with a brave woman, some unsold lunchboxes, and a heart that refused to give up. A story that was far from over. Because true love, the one that transforms and redeems, knows no end. Only new beginnings, new challenges, new chances to prove that some feelings are too strong to be denied. And so, under the starry sky of São Paulo, 3 hearts beat in tune, celebrating not only a love that overcame all obstacles, but the certainty that the best stories are those written with courage, dignity, and a heart open to the surprises that destiny has in store.